Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mubashir Mubarak. So today we are going to discuss about supply chain resilience. What is supply chain resilience? So everyone know that in November 2019 there was a severe pandemic started in China. So at that time, there was this pandemic was very disastrous for China, and on the same time, there are few countries they start to think about this that this pandemic can impact them, impact their businesses, but mostly countries ignore that disaster. And after that disaster spread across the globe, and right now supply chains all over the world has been disturbed because of this pandemic. So after that, right now, everyone is evident that in China there are not too many cases of pandemic, this pandemic COVID-19, and they have actually came to a normal with new strategies to keep going with their supply chain networks or capacities. And the other word, they did not get any suitable strategies, and they did not adopt that kind of uh, tools to make their supply chains resilient. So that's why right now there has been great global disturbances in global supply chains. So today we are gonna discuss about the same supply chain resilience, how countries have adopted this approach, and how they should adopt this approach, and how many countries adopt it. So supply chain resilience. What is supply chain resilience? Supply chain resilience is an ability of supply chain networks to keep it operating under extreme disruptive environment. So it is a very ability of a firm to cope the disruptive situation and bounce back efficiently. So it is ability of a firm to cope disruptive situation and become bounce back efficiently. So firms with flexible and resilient supply chain have already shown an ability to bounce back from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. So, what are the supply chain disruptions? What are the supply chain disruptions? Supply chain disruptions are unplanned events that may occur in supply chain which might affect the normal or expected flow of materials and components. Similarly, supply chain disturbances are consequential situation that significantly threatens the normal course of operations of the affected supply chain entities. So, supply chain major disruptions in last 2 decades are for example, Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita in 2005. In this disastrous hurricane, roads and rail transportation was damaged, and there was because of this hurricane, the survivors were not able to get life-saving supplies, food supplies, the other stuff, because supply chain networks was fully damaged, because the road transportations and rail transportations were damaged. And then again, this similar disaster happened in 2017, Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma, and Hurricane Maria as well in 2017. And roads and rail, and adding to this one, air transportation was also damaged in this hurricane as well. So in this, if we compare supply chain networks from in 2005, how was the response of supply chain networks in 2005 comparatively to 2017? So we came to know that in 2017, supply chain networks were much better and very resilient to respond to this disaster, and then the supply chain networks were effective to deliver life-saving stuffs and medications to survivors as well. So in 2005, in Hurricane Katrina and Rita in US, uh, they actually develop a strategy to adopt a different kind of supply chain in this kind of hurricanes or disastrous events. So in 2017, these strategies were in use, and then there was a new kind of supply chain, or resilient supply chain was there on place. So that was a new norm for supply chains. So in that new normal, these food supplies and life-saving goods were transferred, not easily, but in some limitations they were transferred to survivors, and even after 1 or 2 weeks, their supermarkets were able to sell fruits and other food stuff as well. And then if you see other disruptions like earthquakes around the globe, earthquake in Pakistan 2005, and then earthquake in Nepal 2015. So if we compare these two events, disastrous events, so in 2005 there was too much damage to people in Pakistan, and that was not even possible in first 2 3 days to measure the damages, because all roads were damaged, all road and other transportation ways were blocked and damaged. That's why after I think 3 to 4 days, health workers were able to deliver the life-saving stuff and medical stuff to survivors as well. So comparatively, earthquake in Nepal in 2015, in this disastrous event, actually this was much there was a much different approach in this disaster compared to earthquake in 2005 in Pakistan, because from this earthquake in 2005, there was in all over the Asia. Obviously, Nepal is in Asia, so they adopt a strategy to transfer medications and the life-saving goods to survivors, and they cope up this disastrous event comparatively better than the earthquake in 2005 in Pakistan. So similarly, COVID-19, it's obviously a global pandemic, but in start it was not a global pandemic. It was China-based COVID-19 virus spread. So in China, based in Wuhan, this COVID-19 was started spreading from Wuhan city of China. So at that time, yes, there was disruptions in China with supply chain networks of China, but the other world countries, a few countries were alarmed because of this situation. Mostly countries did not, take a deep look and make strategies for their businesses to go further and adopt new strategies for their supply chain networks. So because of that, after 2019, I think in mid of 2020, COVID-19 was spread everywhere, almost everywhere in every country. So because of this pandemic, supply chain networks were severely damaged in other countries all over the world even. So supply chain disasters, other disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes are similar. Similarly, and the other one, the current pandemic COVID-19, these pandemics cause immense disruptions to supply chains. So, to cope these disruptions are to adopt a new strategy of supply chain, or to for the betterment of supply chain, or to make your supply chain resilient. Every businesses have to adopt approach to make their supply chain resilient. So there are three dimensions of supply chain resilience. First is readiness, and second one is response, third one is recovery. So in readiness, there are a few components. For example, efficient forecasting, risk identification, trend analysis, preemptive approach, and flexibility. So, efficient forecasting, risk identification, similarly, that for a resilient supply chain, businesses need to forecast about the risks and upcoming disruptions upfront, and identifying risks, and then they need to evaluate the trends of market. So trend analysis is as well very important, and they have to adopt a preemptive approach as well to get ready for to cope any of these disruptions. And then if we see supply chain readiness, readiness is an ability of firm supply chain network to forecast, identify risks, assess risks, and monitor deviations, sensing early warnings signals to prepare for mitigate disruptions. And preemptive capability is imperative for establishing dynamic control on your supply chains. And supply chains with high level of readiness have the flexibility of arranging alternative strategies to reduce vulnerabilities. So, and next dimension is response. How to, if you are ready, your firm is ready, your business is ready to cope that disruption, that you know that in near future there uh, you are going to face a disruption, a disruptive event for your supply chains. So after that, the main part is to respond that event. So in response, ability to respond quickly to critical situation is an important determinant of supply chain resilience. So in supply chain resilience responding, timely manner response matter more than anything. So ability to respond and recovery is essential for developing supply chain resilience in time. And then recovery, third dimension of supply chain resilience is recovery. So recovery from disruption is also unique ability of organizations, and supply chain resilience is mostly measured in terms of recovery time. So in how long you spend on that disruption, and then you come back to a normal situation of your supply chain, or you adopt a new approach to get through those disruptions. After disruptions, your supply chain should be as per demand of market situation of market or demand of the flow of material and other activities. So these are three disruption dimensions of supply chain resilience to face these disruptive environments, and to make your supply chain more resilient. So conclusion is that a resilient firm has the capacity to overcome disruptions and continuously transform itself to changing needs of its customers, shareholders, and other stakeholders. So thank you very much. That's all for today.